You're listening to Music Tectonics.
Welcome back to Music Tectonics, where we go beneath the surface of music and tech. I'm your host, Dmitri. I'm also the founder and CEO of Rock, Paper, Scissors, the PR and marketing firm that specializes in music innovation. Today, we're talking to Evan Saxon about why musicians, record labels, and industry veterans should be paying attention to cinema. It's a perfect accompaniment to the conversation we had last week with Will Page, where we went through his report that was titled Music Smashes Box Office Records, Global Value of Music Copyright Soars to $45 billion, now worth more than cinema. We're always turning things upside down here at Music Tectonics, and Evan has some great ideas about how music rights holders can get involved with cinema in spite of that title from Will Page. So it's really fun to put those together. So I encourage you to take a listen to last week's episode as well. And on our Startup Session segment this week, you'll hear from Chloe Dagenias of MusicTeam, a great startup that's come onto our radar as well. Now, on to the show.
Now for our feature interview.
Evan Saxon is one of the few entertainment executives to successfully straddle and meld both the music and film distribution industries. Throughout his career, Evan has been creating and executing global strategies that empower artists, record labels, managers, filmmakers, and IP owners to maximize the reach and revenue of their creative works. He's worked with artists across the musical spectrum, including Dolly Parton, The Beatles, Rush, Bob Marley, Weezer, B.B. King, Los Fabulosos Cadillacs, Tom Petty, and more. Hey, Evan, it's great to have you here.
Oh, thank you. I'm ecstatic to be with you.
Yeah, I really wanted to talk to you because you do something really unique in this music tech / music media landscape with film. And I'm dying to talk to you about it. And I think our listeners will be really excited to hear because you have a really creative approach. Why should artists, artist estates, music rights holders, why should they all be paying attention to film these days?
Well, there's a variety of reasons. One, when you bring in the cinema as a marketing partner, as we've done, for example, with Pearl Jam and a variety of other artists, you're able to significantly expand the reach of your marketing. And you're able to reach people well outside of your social sphere who might actually be very interested in your latest record, your tour, your film, or whatever the case may be. So with these campaigns, and especially on a global basis, you're really creating a marketing campaign that is amplified. Also, the cinema has become a great gathering point, a communal experience. So you're able to create an event that can bring your fans together. And that in turn creates another multiplier effect of marketing because they'll all be posting on their socials. So again, you're amplifying your message and you're not really spending any digital dollars to do it. It's really in a very credible peer-to-peer marketing way. There's a variety of other reasons that, there's revenue considerations. And as we've seen with people like the Go-Go's and others who've released films, there's really been an uplift in everything in their entire ecosystem for the Go-Go's with that documentary. It certainly helped get them into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I've seen with films that I've done with Duran Duran and others, a significant increase in their monthly listenership on platforms like Spotify, an increase in their social followings. And with a certain artist there, I was told there was a 12% increase in consumption on everything across the board, which is pretty significant on a big band. I can go on and bore you with more, but that's just a few examples of why it's important to consider.
Yeah. So what you're saying is if you think in terms of the cinema and film opportunities for music, it kind of opens up new types of experiences and as a result, new audiences. Am I getting that right?
Yeah. I mean, certainly with the new experiences. For example, I've worked with Pearl Jam a few times, and we recently set up the global premiere of their amazing new record, Dark Matter, in 45 countries and 900 cinemas. So we took the cinema from a traditional movie viewing location and really used it to create a communal destination for an entertainment experience. And they were the first people to hear Pearl Jam's record. So you created this communal experience. Fans were the first to hear it in cinemas. Most cinemas have very good sound, so it's a really nice representation. And it was a fantastic event, but it repurposed the movie theater. So that ties in perfectly with what you're saying about new experiences.
Yeah, so I get it. So, if an artist goes on tour, there's a lot to booking a tour, both not just booking it, but then actually producing it, marketing it, and so forth. But this is interesting because you're almost saying there's this whole other network of venues that are cinemas that could be used in this way.
100%. I mean, we've seen events and cinemas used to actually promote a tour. So we can bring in the cinemas as a marketing partner. I've done this with Green Day, where we had an amazing documentary they made called Turn It Around, the story of East Bay punk. Really a love letter from Green Day to Gilman Street in Oakland. And I toured the film in conjunction with their tour. So before or after the band was coming to town, depending upon the market, the cinemas would promote the tour date. And we got Green Day to play the trailer for the film during the intermission between bands on their big screens. So it created a win-win. And I told their manager at the time, Pat Magnarella, I said, I think I can keep this in cinemas for a couple of months, in conjunction with your tour. But because we set it up this way and we toured the film, what it did, it created a tremendous amount of interest in the film outside of the tour markets. Now we kept the film in cinemas for 6 months. So you created a whole additional audience that you could remarket to when the film is available for rental or any other transactional means.
Even as you're talking about, Evan, I love how creative you're being with what the implementation is of these different situations. It doesn't sound like you just have one formula that you use every time you're working with an artist or a tour or whatever. Tell us about a couple more. I mean, this is fun. When you talk about the specifics, I get really excited. What was the Duran Duran project you did?
The Duran Duran project was called A Hollywood High. But what we did is we premiered the film at the Dolby Theater, the home of the Academy Awards. This was the very first time a rock doc was premiered at the home of the Academy Awards. And this tied in perfectly. The band was being inducted to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. We had this beautiful film. Dolby couldn't have been any greater of a partner. I was very, very fortunate to get them on board. And we created this fantastic event that tied in with everything going on with Duran Duran's ecosystem. There was a tour, there was an album that was recently released on BMG. A lot of the songs in the film were from the album, as well as some of the hits. I mean, to include all of the hits from Duran Duran in the new record, the concert would have to be 4 hours. So it was all put into 90 minutes. And it was a very successful event. And it played around the world. I think we're in like 30-something countries. I think one of the reasons I'm a little bit creative is because I don't come from a traditional theatrical background or a studio background. I come from the music world. I worked at an amazing independent record label, IRS Records, which REM got the launch on. I went to work at Capitol Records. I had an amazing time. And then I started a tour marketing company where I programmed the music that was featured during the intermission between bands at concerts and tried to help artists reach new audiences. So I was always looking for new ways to create opportunity and visibility for an artist. I was never really too concerned with status quo.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're thinking about it through the artist lens as opposed to purely from a film perspective. Give us another one. What's another example of one of the projects you did that might show us another way that this works?
Last year, a year and a half ago, I was invited to be part of the team on a beautiful documentary about Syd Barrett called Have You Got It Yet? The story of Syd Barrett and Pink Floyd. And we created a strategy where we didn't want the film to be in cinemas in a compressed time frame, because we felt the longer we could keep it in cinemas, we could build an audience, and there would be a lot of online chatter. And we ended up keeping it in cinemas, I want to say 7 or 8 months, from Japan to America, Europe, and various other places. It was in cinemas longer than Barbie. And what it did is it creates the story in and of itself, because you'll see people as the film tours posting about it, talking about it. And that opened up a variety of press opportunities. So a further rising tide for everything around the film. And it's a great story.
Oh. And so in some cases, there's a documentary where you're releasing films, but it also sounds like some of these are like listening parties at movie theaters. How does that work?
That was exactly, we did that with Pearl Jam. and recently with Coldplay. And what we did is we were looking for an innovative way to create excitement around the release of a record. And a lot of what I'm about to tell you was told to me from an executive at Republic Records, so I tip my hat to them. But it's hard to create something tangible around the release of a digital piece of music. But by creating the events in cinemas, it became very tangible. It became communal. So we wanted to reward fans because, especially with Pearl Jam and Coldplay, it's all about the fans. And by enabling the fans to be the first to hear it with their friends before it's on any platform, iTunes or Spotify, it created a sense of excitement. So for Pearl Jam, this was actually super cool. The album is called Dark Matter. So we played the album in its entirety in dark cinemas. Literally, you sat there and listened to the entire record. And when was the last time you dropped a needle and listened to both sides of a record just sitting there? And then we played the record back a second time, this time with some graphics on screen, but lyric. And by having lyrics on screen, it enabled the fan to have a deeper emotional attachment to the song because you can read the story as you're hearing the story. And this was the second time through. So the first time you're hearing a song, you're trying to figure it all out. But because we played it back a second time, they were able to really get, especially for me, because I'm a huge Pearl Jam fan, much more into the song. And you remember the album as an entire piece of art, as opposed to a single you might hear on a playlist or radio. And with Coldplay, we played the record all the way through with lyrics. And then on the back end, there was a video of the band performing a song that hadn't been seen before. So we created two different types of experiences. But what this did was help create excitement around the record. And for Pearl Jam, I'll be part of a rising tide of success. If Taylor Swift didn't release the record on the same day, Pearl Jam, I think, might have had a number one record that week. And we've been nominated for Grammys. And for Coldplay, I think it might have been the highest grossing first week record for them. It set all sorts of records. Success has, 1,000 parents, and I will certainly claim to be one of them.
Nice. So you've mapped out a few different ways to team up music projects with cinema. Obviously, the documentary in general and just having a theatric release of a documentary is kind of like a pretty straightforward one in some respects, but then also tying it to tour dates, using it to promote tours or to co-promote with performance tours, and then the listening party idea as well. So there's a variety of things here that you've already put out there. Can these types of projects be profitable?
Yeah, they certainly can be profitable depending upon the scale and what you're looking to achieve. We did an event with the artist Melanie Martinez a number of years ago when nobody knew who Melanie Martinez was except her fans. And that's all that matters. She didn't have radio play. And it was a profitable endeavor financially in terms of the arrangement I have with Atlantic Records, but also was a rising tide with everything else that went on. So it further increased streaming, increased viewership of her YouTube videos. So I think there could have been additional revenue streams beyond the ticket sale revenues that we paid back.
Yeah, makes sense. What are the nuances of working with movie theaters? It's got to be very different than the traditional live touring industry.
It is. The movie theater, especially when I started this, and this was a number of years ago, putting in these events, was not used to these types of events. A movie theater's traditional business model was they would receive content from a studio, platform, or film to play 5 times a day, 7 days a week. But what we've seen is these events can become really additive to their bottom line. And they're becoming more and more flexible on doing things. And I'll give another example. We worked with the artist Russ and UTA, and Russ had created a short film and wanted to put it in theaters. I said, great, give me the short film, give me a taped Q&A, we'll make an hour's worth of content at least. And they said, no, we just want to do the short film, and it's only 19 minutes long. And I'm like, cinemas don't ticket 19-minute films. Would Russ tape something specific for the fans, an introduction and an outro? And they came back to me and they said they would. So I approached my cinema partners, 3 of them, and I said, hey, I'd like to create a special event. Russ is amazing. His fan base is amazing, but it's only 19 minutes long. And at first they said, oh, Evan, you always want to do something new. And I said, of course I do. And you should too. You need attendance. And they all came back and said yes. And so we ended up putting this 19-minute film in, and we sold out theaters. We had some
Wow.
great attendance. And UTA, the cinemas, and Russ all tracked socials, and not one person complained about seeing a 19-minute film. So what it proved is with the right artist and the right content, you can actually premiere short-form content in a movie theater and create an event around it. You can always put stuff on YouTube later on, but you have so many different opportunities to create a human interaction, a human experience. Like I believe one of the winners at the Academy Awards last night talked about, the need to keep movie theater lights and the benefit of having events in the theater.
Well, every time you open your mouth about another project, I think we learn something new. What are some other film-related projects our listeners should check out?
Certainly, I would highly recommend anybody watch Melanie Martinez's film K through 12. It was designed to be a companion piece to her record K through 12, and it was so beautiful. It was so beautifully shot, beautifully made. The story is great. It's not a doc, it's not a concert film, it's a narrative. And we had the highest grossing film the night we played in everywhere, including Latvia, Poland, Spain, UK, USA. And then the record label released it on YouTube. As much as I'm an advocate for direct to audience, this was a little earlier on. And I think within 2 to 3 months, there was 60 million views. There's now over 100 million views of her film on YouTube. And I think what this campaign did, it further elevated Melanie's visibility. And I think it also reconfirmed the fact that Melanie Martinez is not just a pop artist, a singer-songwriter. She's also a visual artist. She's a filmmaker. And from seeing this, more and more artists want to incorporate the visual as part of the experience and the creative expression to their fans. And that's where the cinema can come into play.
Well, this has been great diving into all this. Before I let you leave, we like to widen out a little bit. What other trends or emerging practices should music innovators that are listening to this podcast be paying attention to from your world?
Well, I think in terms of a trend, if I'm a record label or a manager, which I'm obviously not, I would factor in a cinema event. And it doesn't need to be global, doesn't need to be super massive. You can do this on a regional basis. I would factor this in to my marketing strategy because we are in an attention economy. It's hard to get people's time. Again, I'm stealing from an executive at Republic Records. But by creating an event in cinemas and getting people to gather, you're able to let them hear an artist's real creative release in the pretty pristine environment. So that's what I would consider in terms of my space and trends. I think you're going to see more of this. I think the short film with Russ has opened up more doors. I got a call last week from a major label with an artist that's made a short film and wants to do a theatrical event. And there's a lot you can do with these events. You tie in radio, you tie in press, you tie in retail. You can do post-film Q&As and really make something special for the fans.
What about direct to fan through e-commerce as it relates to film and music? Have you done things along those lines?
I'm such an advocate of this. I firmly believe with regard to a film that, and I'm doing this now with artists, so putting in a window between your traditional theatrical release and the next transactional point is usually when you're on a TVOD of iTunes. I believe the artist should make the film available directly through their website, a direct-to-audience release. And there's a few advantages of this. One, you can set the price point. Two, you can capture all the data. An artist or a filmmaker has spent so much time and energy cultivating a fan base and trust that they should get first bite at the apple of the revenues for their artwork. And by making the film available direct to audience in this way, they certainly can. You can also bundle, which you can't do on other platforms. So maybe you rent the film for $10, but you offer up the vinyl for $20. There's a variety of different transactional points. All of these take place within the artist ecosystem. So you're not sending any of your fans to a third party. You could still do iTunes, still do, YouTube or whatever it is that you want. But what I'm doing more and more is working with the artist, the manager, and record label to create a windowed release strategy so they can maximize all their marketing and revenue generating opportunities.
Awesome. Evan, this has been super fun. I think you've opened up a window into the world you work in. Again, I think it's super creative the way you're using cinema and film to leverage existing wider audiences, new audiences, additional locations and experiences. Super fun. Thanks for coming on the podcast.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for having me.
Have you registered for our March seismic activity? Join us online March 26th at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. UK time for Permission to Pick My Brain. Ask Me Anything. We'll be joined by music tech experts Vicky Nauman, Hazel Savage, and Cliff Flue for an hour of open conversation. Bring your questions and get ready to come on camera. Head over to musictectonics.com to register now and learn more about our free monthly online event series.
Startup Sessions.
Hi, this is Chloe Dagenias with MusicTeam. I started MusicTeam to help independent artists and creators reclaim their creative time and earn what's rightfully theirs. The way we do that is by providing a one-stop shop platform for their entire music catalog. Creators and artists get a full view of their musical assets, set ownership shares, and credit every contributor that helped them bring their vision to life. We handle the administrative tasks such as music registrations to rights organization and distribute music to over 90 stores and digital service providers. Artists can also track whether their next release is ready to be published, as our platform guides them through the necessary steps to ensure everyone gets their fair share. I first came across this problem during my graduate studies while writing my thesis in information systems. My research delved into the complex data flows in the music industry, analyzing how information moves between different stakeholders, platforms, and organizations. It was eye-opening to see how these data streams directly affect whether artists and creators get paid fairly and on time. The really critical part was discovering just how much metadata management matters when it comes to getting royalties to the right people. Seeing these challenges firsthand lit a fire in me. I knew I had to create something better to help independent creators and artists navigate this complex system. The thing that nobody else was doing is giving independent artists an accessible and cost-effective platform to comprehensively manage their entire music catalog, which has been specifically designed and optimized to ensure that every contributor receives attribution, recognition, and compensation for their creative work. We provide value to independents by guiding them through every aspect of catalog management. Given the music industry's complexity, we provide educational content and expert tips that help them apply this knowledge within our platform to better manage their metadata and music assets. I am especially proud of our growth and commitment to our vision as a startup. We remain one of the few platforms that combine distribution and registration services for both musical works and sound recordings, while prioritizing metadata quality and user education. Our results so far include testimonials from users who went from feeling overwhelmed to feeling supported and understood. Multiple collaborations with Sony for distributing 360 reality audio content, and several exciting upcoming projects that I'm not yet able to announce. My biggest challenge has been building trust with independent artists in an industry filled with complex platforms and services. The next thing we're going to do is improve our integration with our sister project called Skytracks, which is a browser-based music creation and collaboration platform. Thanks for listening to me on Music Tectonics.
Thanks for listening to Music Tectonics. If you like what you hear, please subscribe on your favorite podcast app. We have new episodes for you every week. Did you know we do free monthly online events that you, our lovely podcast listeners, can join? Find out more at musictectonics.com. And while you're there, look for the latest about our annual conference and sign up for our newsletter to get updates. Everything we do explores the seismic shifts that shake up music and technology, the way the Earth's tectonic plates cause quakes and make mountains. Connect with Music Tectonics on Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. That's my favorite platform. Connect with me, Dmitri Vitsa, if you can spell it. We'll be back again next week, if not sooner.
You're listening to Music Tectonics.